Hello folks, we are still in California. Yeah, it's gonna be a while till we leave California. It's a huge state. But California is also the state that holds the title of having the most national parks. Out of any state, California is number one. It has 9 throughout its regions and territory. We're here at one of them. Southern California is home to 2 major deserts. The first of which is the Sonoran Desert, and in the past 2 destinations, the first 2 destinations of this Best of the Most West tour, we were traveling through it. It includes the Imperial Valley that we were in yesterday, and the other is the Mojave Desert, a little bit north of the Sonoran Desert, and it's much higher in elevation. Now you may think, oh, well, they're just 2 deserts. That's it. Well, they're very, very different, the Mojave and the Sonoran deserts. The change in altitude means a change in the climate, and that has drastic outcomes and changes for the wildlife that inhabits this ecosystem. Now, why am I talking about 2 deserts and not just the one we're walking through right now? Well, Joshua Tree National Park kind of gives the visitor the best of both worlds when it comes to both deserts. And we'll be here for 2 days, which means we'll get to see the best of one and the other. Look at that, that is beautiful. A desert just doesn't have to be only sand. It could be beautiful, picturesque views of these rocks and boulders and mountains that are cut up by thousands and millions of years of weathering and erosion, sprinkled in with a lot of desert vegetation. Makes for great scenery. Now the thing about deserts is that when one desert ends, it's not very clear when another begins. It's not like there's a border marked in the sand or the rocks that says, here's the Mojave, here's the Sonoran. No, that's not what it is. It's sort of a gradual transition, a gradient between the 2. So the beauty about this park and the way it's preserved and everything that we'll see over the next 2 days showcases the best of these parks. As we traverse through this beautifully preserved parkland, hopefully we get to enjoy the best of this Southern California desert landscape. Now, as we see our surroundings, we're noticing these very spindly, wonky, wavy trees that seem to grow in all sorts of weird, crazy directions. Not contained by any sort of natural law to grow in a certain direction. They're all over the place. What are these? Well, these are the Joshua trees that Joshua Tree National Park is named after. And these are seemingly everywhere. But you're only going to find them in the western part of the park, where the Mojave Desert is, not the eastern part of the park. That's where the Colorado Desert is, part of that Sonoran Desert. So essentially, you're getting, in a visit to Joshua Tree National Park, 2 parks for the price of 1. I don't want to turn our first day at Joshua Tree into one trail. Here we go. I don't want to do that. So let's get to some other places within Joshua Tree National Park. Okay, just one more. That is some good stuff. So here in Joshua Tree, you're going to see a lot of, in addition to these Joshua trees, a lot of these big agglomerations of large boulders. You might ask yourself, who in their right mind would move so many big boulders from these mountains just to make a big pile? Well, that's not exactly the case. At one point, these massive piles were all part of one big super boulder. And through the geologic processes of weathering and erosion through millions of years, little by little, boulder by boulder, these would all break up into these smaller, still large relative to us people, but smaller boulders, which forms this giant pile. Oh, how beautiful. Could these be the wildflowers that blossom in the springtime? Oh yeah, it's the springtime where it doesn't get too hot, scorching 100+ degree weather in the summertime, but it's also not too cold. We are a little over 3,000 feet above sea level. Yeah, that's much, much higher than yesterday at the Salton Sea. But springtime also means, in addition to those wildflowers that bloom here and there, that it's peak season. Just the right temperature means that you're gonna have crowds of people. Given that it is the springtime peak season, I hope I'm doing a service to this video and to you all by omitting what really goes on here. You know, long lines at the entry points and parking lots, lines of cars, fleets of them. And then, of course, screaming kids getting dragged by their mothers. 'Cause, you know, that's what I really look forward to when I'm visiting these national parks. Wow, we got some great views of the greater Mojave Desert. Now, although we are in the state of California, we're not really on the West Coast. We're very, very much inland. So inland that Joshua Tree National Park in the Mojave Desert and all this surrounding area is part of what's known as the Inland Empire. That's right. Just like the Imperial Valley had a very prestigious sounding, majestic name, so too does the Inland Empire. The Imperial Valley is technically part of the Inland Empire. It's that great area east of California's coastal mountains. Now west of that, yeah, that's the West Coast, but here we are having the honor of walking through an empire. And just like I pondered about yesterday, I wonder who rules over the Inland Empire. Now, for a very long time, this inland empire, I don't know if it was called the Inland Empire back then, but for a long part of American history, this was kind of an extension of the Old West, frontier country. I mean, various Native American tribes have inhabited this land for, who knows, thousands upon thousands of years. But this is considered very much Old West country. Wow, what a view all around us. Only Joshua Tree National Park can offer these great views of the Mojave. Just as the land here in Joshua Tree National Park is very similar to the land you'd find in the frontier of America, those old western states. Similar is going to be the use of the land. So around here, the area that is now protected was once extracted for various purposes. Maybe farmhands would use this land for grazing. I don't know what nutrients are in the vegetation here, but livestock were brought out here, and this land was used to help the livestock nourish themselves. Additionally, lots of mining operations went on here. Zinc, iron, copper mines, gold even was mined here. So you might have in the past seen mines like these in the distance, perched on the side of this little hill. And this was a gold mine that operated from the end of the 1800s up until the year 1936 when it was shut down, because this area finally became protected under the National Park Service, under a national monument. Yeah, not quite national park. It took a few more decades until 1994 when Joshua Tree National Park was finally categorized as that big national park it is today. Well, how majestic. You can see for miles and miles the treeless bald mountains rolling up and down. Makes for an amazing view. Talk about a great sunset view. It's been a long day for me, but it's definitely been a day worthwhile. I mean, if we're ending it off with a view like this, I think we have definitely fulfilled what we came out to do for this first day at Joshua Tree National Park. Now, some of you may be thinking, we never got to see the other part, the eastern part of this park. Well, that's for day 2, tomorrow. It'll be a drastically different landscape, and I'm very excited to check that out. So, I'm coming to you from a very tranquil evening, a sunset of great proportions here at a great overlook of Joshua Tree National Park on the west side. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location.